Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today is Ghanaian-Irish and lives between Berlin and London. Zoe Adjonyoh is a chef and a writer. Right now she's working on a memoir and runs a successful pop-up restaurant called Zoe's Ghana Kitchen, which sometimes pops up in London and sometimes pops up here in Berlin. Welcome to the show. Tell us, first of all, for people who don't know, what's a pop-up restaurant?
Well, hello, thank you for having me. A pop-up restaurant is... Well, pop-up's a term coined about 6 or 7 years ago. I think the concept kind of started then, in England anyway. It just means the takeover of a space for any kind of temporary time. So it could be a day or a week or a month. But the idea is that it's temporary and usually in a space... more often than not in a space that isn't designed for the thing that's going to pop up there. So I do food, but, you know, very often you can get fashion boutiques or art galleries or all sorts of pop-ups, really. Mm.
So what's the attraction for you? If you say it's often in a place that's not designed...
I know.
You know, I mean, I'm thinking of food straight away. You need a kitchen, you need all sorts of facilities.
I know. When I first started doing it, that used to really excite me, like the challenge of trying to cook in very odd spaces that weren't really equipped, and it was part of the fun of creating a restaurant in a completely different environment. It still is to a degree, but I prefer now to go to places that have running water and, you know, some kind of kitchen facility, just because it does make it a lot easier. But it's exciting to, you know, bring a whole new atmosphere and environment to a space that's usually... Quite often they're not used for anything in particular. The dead spaces, that's the beauty of pop-ups. They take over derelict spaces and turn them into something creative and interesting and bring people to them.
Well, was it actually, do you know, was it invented in Britain?
I've got no idea, to be honest. I doubt it. I mean, it's not... it's been huge in London, anyway, for at least 6 or 7 years, possibly, yeah. And it's starting to become quite a big thing in Berlin as well, actually. Mm.
You said, you know, it needs running water. This sort of... Have you actually done one without running water, then?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could transfer that, because I do street food as well. So very often in street food environments, you don't have a kitchen and you don't have running water. So you are installing temporary cooking facilities and using, like, gallons with water with a tap on it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of improvisation goes on in that environment. So it's not as difficult as perhaps it sounds, but you know, I've got to a stage where I'd rather have it a little bit easier than not.
And that's your side of it. Now, how about the people who want to go and eat there, if you like, in that, how do they get to know about it then? Because it sounds quite secretive.
Well, yeah, it can be.
Well, you know, I mean, obviously there's way. Is it social media? I mean,
social media mostly. I've got quite a big mailing list now for both London and Berlin, so... and it's a lot of people just spread the word. It's word of mouth. People tell other people. That's kind of how my business has grown, organically, through that kind of people telling other people about it. But then, yeah, I use social media a lot.
And how do you find premises?
Again, that's become a lot easier in the last year or so, because now you have networks specifically designed to connect landlords with, you know, small businesses or pop-up businesses to negotiate fair rents and, you know, temporary use of space and stuff. But, you know, the first ever one I did in Berlin, I did it in a friend's apartment and just in bars and stuff. I just told people, oh, I'm doing this, do you want to come? And people came. But now, yeah, people recommend spaces, or there are networks designed to help you out.
Well, now you're in a position, you're here in Berlin and people are waiting, you know, sort of at the door, really. You're booked out, I know. And I want to ask you, you sent us some pictures, as all our guests do. Yeah. I'll ask you, wait, actually wasn't that what I was going to show first of all? Have you... Oh. This isn't pop-up exactly.
Hang on, you've got a...
There's no picture up. Ah, dear. Technology.
Ah, yes.
There's a picture, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a picture.
Yeah, now this is in Russia.
Yeah, so this was very exciting, actually. I was invited as an artist rather than a chef to be part of a group exhibition for a festival called Decisive Action. So it's the NCCA Ural, so Centre for Contemporary Art.
Oh, right.
They were having a group show, and I did a food performance, which was a supper club in a public park, basically. Because my supper club events, the pop-up restaurant, they're experiential, if you like, because I host it and I'm involved with everything that's going on. And so we did this, in a public space. Certainly
involved in this picture.
Yeah.
This is, I've heard about this drink.
Yeah.
This is a schnapps that's devilish, isn't it?
It is quite devilish, yeah. It's called Alamo Bitters. So it's widely drunk in Ghana as kind of it's a herbal remedy, basically, but it's very strong alcohol content. Yeah. And when I found out about it, I was just like, amazing. And I also found out that it's used by men as an aphrodisiac. So then that doubled my interest immediately. So, I always end all of the supper clubs giving everybody a shot of bitters, and there's like a little speech that goes with it, and everybody loves it.
OK.
Everyone don't love the taste necessarily, but they...
Has to be...
Yeah, you have to neck it really quickly.
OK, neck it. What initially brought you to Germany, to Berlin?
Yeah, so I was doing, as you mentioned, I'm a writer as well, so I was studying part-time the MA in Creative and Life Writing at Goldsmiths at the time, and it's about 3 years ago, and we had a summer break, and some colleagues, some co-writers on the course, and I decided to have a little trip around Europe, kind of like a writing trip, I guess. And so we went through various countries, and we always were planning to stop in Berlin, and we did, and I just fell in love with Berlin, and I ended up staying. I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, I was running out of money, quite frankly. So I did a Ghana kitchen to boost my pocket money. And and then I guess the love affair with Berlin started then. And I was, after that first supper club, somebody did a review in Tip Berlin, and I got about...
That's the local, magazine.
It's like a Time Out.
This is like a Time Out of London, but thinking of the rest of the world, it's a city guide.
It's a city guide, yeah.
And you've got a write-up in there, which is, that's always creates...
It got a huge response, and so I had so many bookings, people trying to book for the next one, which took me aback, actually. But it meant I had a reason to come back very quickly, so... That's what's been happening.
OK, let's see Zoe in action, so to speak, at her pop-up restaurant here in Berlin. Our lucky reporter, Johannes, also got to taste the goods.
A cultural centre in Berlin's hip Neukölln neighbourhood. People enjoy the evening sun while waiting for a gastronomic treat. Inside, in the kitchen, Zoe Adjonyoh is making final preparations for tonight's event. This summer, she moved her pop-up kitchen to Berlin. Together with her team, Zoe offers a special dinner with homemade delicacies from Ghana.
It's tasty.
Zoe does not like limiting herself to managing the evening. She takes part in every single step of the operation. In her cooking, Zoe tries to keep the dishes as traditional as possible. A stew with both chicken and fish in it, and some spicy chilies on top is a challenge for European tastes. But Zoe wants the evening to be a special culinary experience. Tonight, she's expecting around 40 guests. The dishes are also served by the chef herself. Zoe gives a short briefing about what the dishes are and, of course, how to eat them. Soon, the customers get used to eating with their hands. And although some are struggling with the hot spices and unfamiliar flavors, everyone seems to be enjoying their gastronomic adventure.
It's really nice. I mean, the spicing is... It's not as hot as I thought it would be, though I think maybe for German palates it might be even too hot sometimes.
And the chef herself seems to be more than happy with the outcome of the evening.
And the chef herself designs T-shirts too. Actually, did you design this?
Actually, my friend, he does all my graphic design for me, who created my logo, Yasser, he actually came up with the tie-dye T-shirt.
OK, because this is a tie-dye T-shirt. I used to wear T-shirts like this 40 years ago. But Zoe has very kindly given us 2 T-shirts, some recipe cards to give away, and some legendary Shito hot sauce. This is dangerous, I believe. Is it?
It can be. I've given you a mild one. It's still hot, but it's not going to blow your palate off. But it's still pretty spicy. It's got a kick.
On a scale from 1 to 10?
I'm going to put that as a 6.
Oh, OK.
Yeah.
Oh, OK, OK. But, I mean, actually, I don't know. I mean, my wife loves hot sauces. And are African sauces the hottest? People say they are.
I mean, I think so. You can get... The ingredients, for example, in the shito, they're very simple. It's lots of ground crayfish and ground prawns. It's about 30% chili in that one. And then it's like, if the hot one is like 50% chili.
Okay. Anyway, we're giving these away in that I don't quite know how we're going to send this through the post, but we will. We will do it. If you're interested in going into the draw, there's only one winner, I'm afraid. Write to us at insight@dw.de. That address will appear at the end of the programme as well. Thank you for those.
You're welcome.
Now, you've done it in London, you've done it in Berlin. What's the difference? Tell us some differences.
It's a good question. I think the difference in Berlin is that there's a lot of competition for food. I mean, there's a lot of competition for food in London. And without being disparaging to Berlin palates, I think that people are more readily able to spend money on going out eating in London, I think. Like, there's a real strong food culture of wanting to experience new and different cuisines. I think people in Berlin, there's definitely a community who are interested and adventurous with food. But I think a lot of people, because you can get so much good, cheap food in Berlin, people, perhaps some people aren't quite as adventurous, and then some people aren't quite as willing to spend that little bit extra to try something, do you know what I mean, a bit different.
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, I don't know, but I would suspect you have to charge less money here in Berlin, don't you?
Yeah.
And yet you say that they're still not...
Well, it's interesting. I have to charge less, but my costs are actually higher, obviously, because I have to come over. And the ingredients are more expensive in Berlin.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because in London, I mean, London is so multicultural, obviously. I didn't even think to ask you where you get your ingredients there, but I mean, can you get everything? Do you have to come over with suitcase? I mean,
I always used to joke about it, but so the first one I ever did in Berlin, I had real trouble actually trying to track down Afro shops where I could buy the ingredients, and I went on my bike, stupidly on my bike as well. I went all over Berlin. It took me like such a long time to gather up everything. But since then, there's actually very strong... I've learned there's quite a big Ghanaian community in Berlin, and it seems to be quite condensed in Neukölln, if I'm not wrong. I might be wrong. But there's a lot... There's a lot of... there's quite a lot of African grocery shops there, most of which are Ghanaian, actually. And so I've built up relationships with the ladies that run those places, and... so it's super easy now.
But it's more expensive here.
They do tend to charge more. I guess because it's a supply and demand thing, isn't it? I guess people aren't... It's not like Ridley Road. I live in Hackney, so, it's cheap as chips.
Talking about Ghanaian and things, I mean, you're a Londoner, really, if I may say so. But I believe you went to Ghana to sort of find out more about the cuisine, really. I mean, did you... Yeah?
Yeah, that's true. A couple of years ago, I mean, I actually spent a couple of years in Ghana as a child, but hadn't been back for a very long time. And as this Ghana kitchen was kind of developing momentum and getting bigger, and I was like, oh, goodness, I'm going to have to diversify my menu. I'm going to have to do all these different things. So on a joint research trip for my memoir and for a recipe collecting mission, I guess, I went back a couple of years ago, and it was really good fun. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's had nothing to do with your memoir or your recipes, but it's just a great picture.
That was like an archaeological dig. No, that was me just having some... I went on a bit of an adventure, obviously, doing a bit of travelling around Ghana, and that's in the Volta region, Willie Falls. The funniest thing, actually, this picture, I I walked out under the waterfall, and when I came back, all of these kids they all climbed on top of me, loads and loads of kids, and that was like the end of them the climb down.
Okay.
Someone took a picture.
Now, show some more pictures, because you grew up, your mum, first of all, I just love this picture of your mum. Your mum looks so
cool
gorgeous.
Chick, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, we were living in Deptford then, so I'm a chubby little toddler, and my mum's looking pretty fly, I have to say there, yeah.
Yeah, and there's one of, no, that's not it, one of both your parents. And at this point, I should ask you, was it your father who sort of influenced you at all with the cooking or not?
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, this has been misrepresented a few times, actually. But, I mean, obviously, my dad's Ghanaian, so that's where my influence comes from. My mum's Irish. And, yeah, it was a case of watching him bringing home some very strange ingredients and wondering what that was. And more often than not, he would cook for himself, I think, because he didn't realise that we had an interest. But, yeah, so a couple of times I used to kind of bug him to teach me, well, what's that you're making and what's going on there.
Yeah, but he wasn't around, I believe, when you were small, so...
Yeah, he wasn't around that much. So, I mean, definitely that's the intrigue, that's where the food came from, and the palate for it, 'cause, you know, he cooked hot.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting journey for me, because doing the Ghana kitchen, like, through food, has been sort of a way into that side of my culture, actually.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting journey.
But you didn't start in food. You did a law degree, or you started one. Did you finish it?
No, I finished, thanks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We have a lawyer in the studio. I better be careful what I say.
I mean, I've never really settled into anything quite as well as I've settled into this. It's a funny one. But I've done lots of different things. Yeah, I'd studied law, been a music promoter, band manager, did some journalism, worked for tech companies, creative production stuff. I've done all kinds of jobs, really. I even had a job planting plants on the side of highways at some point, yeah.
But I mean, if perhaps a more serious thing, and I mean, we've all, I think, certainly I've done many things in my life, but writing is a sort of continuing thing. Is writing number one, or cooking number one? I mean, cooking may be how you make your living more at the moment, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably it's a combination of the two eventually, but, I mean, writing was always something I was scared to go after, because, you know, when you really want to do something, you're scared of not being able to do it. I think that's the thing. And whereas I fell into cooking, it was quite an organic, strange journey to where I am now with cooking. But writing is still like my, you know... If I don't finish this book, I will be very unhappy.
What is... I mean, can you tell us a bit about the book? You said it's a memoir.
It's a memoir. So the idea is that it's creative non-fiction, so it's storytelling. It's like episodes of my life that have built up to the point of where I am now. So I guess it's been on hold a little bit because so much has happened in the last 2 years or the year and a half that I'm probably going to incorporate food with it in some way. So it's probably going to become more of a... I'm not sure, maybe a cookbook with a lot of, like, short, sort of episodic memoir.
But is it, is it also going back to your roots, and has it got Ghana
absolutely.
in it? And
there's a lot of...
Has it got Ireland in it?
It's got a bit of Ireland, it's got a lot of my dad, a lot of Ghana, and a lot of all of those dynamics. And,
What about, though, a straight cookbook?
Yeah, what about it?
I'm to be honest, I'm sort of... There's just too many, but it's because they sell well. So
well, I'd love to do one, you know, and it's definitely something I want to do. It's just having the time, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, but I should think people are interested because, I've done research on you. There's obviously a lot of people very interested in Zoe's Ghana Kitchen. You know, you haven't got enough time. I know because we've been trying to get in touch with you. You know,
yeah, I mean, there's certainly an interest, and I do cookery lessons and stuff, and people.
You have time for that?
I know. I'm a busy woman. But no, there's an appetite. I think there is generally an appetite for people. African cuisine is on the rise generally, I think. It has been for the last few years. And I think we're going to see in the next year or so, like an explosion in different kind of African cuisines on the street food scene and the pop-up scene. And definitely, probably, you'll see a lot more African cooks on TV and cookbooks, I think.
I think that is our cue, actually, because street food, much like you'll find in Asia or Africa, has arrived here in Germany, and rather like Zoe's pop-up restaurant, it's proving to be very, very popular.
This is the Neuen Market Hall in Berlin's Kreuzberg district. There's a street food market here every Thursday, featuring cuisine from around the world. You're encouraged to eat standing up, and it's fine to eat with your fingers.
We want to try a lot of different foods and meet a lot of different people, the people who've created these dishes. We also want to offer food that's affordable. You can walk around, try different kinds of food, and learn about different cultures.
For example, kimchi quesadillas and Korean beef tacos. Prepared by Lauren Lee. She's Korean-American, and after living in Los Angeles, has brought her unique blend of Korean and Mexican cuisine to Berlin.
What's special about the street food market here is that we're mostly small producers here that all love the things we're making, and we really take the time and the effort to really make a nice product.
Food trucks are increasingly turning up in big cities in Germany. American Billy Davis used to operate a taco truck in his home state of Texas. Now, he's doing it in Berlin. But the authorities still haven't given him a license for sales on public streets.
There hasn't been any history of that. Yeah, so it seems very foreign and new and maybe difficult for them to accept.
The Heisse Hobel turns up every week at the street food market in Berlin's Kreuzberg district. It features freshly prepared cheese specialties from Germany's Allgäu region. Lots of people come to the market to try something new. Others are just looking for a little piece of home.
I've never seen this food before. It's the first time I eat this food.
These are pierogi from Poland. It was my mom's favorite dish. She made them all the time, from a recipe our family had used for generations. I just wanted to try one.
Chili beef pie from New Zealand. Never seen it before, but it tastes great.
Some experts say that street food in Germany may soon offer some serious competition to sit-down restaurants.
That could certainly happen. Street food restaurants provide a more diverse selection of food items, a wide selection of cuisines from a number of different countries, and they do it at a price that restaurants just can't match.
Street food is also a way for young chefs like Lauren Lee to make a statement. You can serve first-rate cuisine on a paper plate, just like they do now here in Berlin.
My guest is Zoe Adjonyoh, who runs a pop-up restaurant here, everywhere. And you do street food.
Do street food.
And you've been there?
I've been there, it's great. I actually know the lady, Kavita, who's one of the people who founded and started that. It's amazing, and I've seen it gather such momentum in the past 2 years. It's like crazy.
And would you do it?
Yeah, I think, we were in conversation a little bit a long time ago about me having a stall there, and I would love to, but just my schedule at the time was a bit hectic. But this will be, as that report says, the same as London. Street food is influencing restaurant menus and really, taking over the food scene. And I think it's great that that's happening in Berlin as well.
Funny enough, this is an international broadcaster, people watching Asia and Africa will think, well, we've been doing this for all our lives, weren't they?
Yeah, they will. And, I don't understand why it's taken so long.
Yeah.
But it really is revolutionising how people eat and the access to good quality international foods at very reasonable prices. So it's, there can't be anything wrong with that.
And London is a big centre of this, and you now come to Berlin. Is Berlin on the continent, as the Brits would say, They're part of it, actually. But would you say Berlin's the second place for that sort of stuff? I mean, having seen that report, your experience is...
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but I think so. What I've seen is like a huge growth in that kind of activity. And as I said, more and more pop-ups are happening in Berlin, more like food entrepreneurs, and the focus... Because I think in England, there's been a concentration on food, like there's been lots of TV food programmes, probably too many in the last 10 years. And food culture is just crazy in England, in a good way. And I think that kind of is... Berlin's adopting a similar outlook on food and taking it seriously and wanting to try new things.
Mm. You do festivals as well, I believe. What's that? That must be quite hair-raising, I would have thought. I mean, do you cook on a grand scale, then, for thousands?
Yeah. It's hard work, festivals, but it's a lot of fun. So I recently I was invited to be part of something called the Feast Collective, which was a speciality food tent at Camp Festival and Festival, and it was really good fun. And, you put in with some great names who've been doing excellent street food for years. And you're like, But yeah, it's a demanding environment, it's a challenge, but, it's super amazing when you get the feedback, people loving it and coming back day after day.
Because I think that's something that's going to come over here a lot more too, because more and more, there are a vast amount of festivals in Great Britain, and more of them aren't just pop festivals. They're doing all sorts of stuff and lots of food and things.
Yeah,
and I think
food festivals are, they're coming up as well now. But I think people want more than hot dogs and burgers now at festivals because of that. It's moving from the high street to fields a little bit.
Yeah, the palate, the European palate. Yeah. And the Germans. What about German cuisine? I've got to ask you, I mean, what do you think of it? Tell us.
That's a good question. I don't know that I've had... This is going to sound ridiculous, actually, but I haven't had an amazing amount of German food, apart from when I've been in regional areas where that's like the cuisine. There's a lot of pickled stuff, isn't there? And I love strudel. But my favourite thing that I've experienced is I was living with one of my friends, Tosh, who's from Bavaria originally. And he introduced me to the Bavarian breakfast and, white sausage, pretzel and some really delicious honey mustard. And it's like, that's the best German food that I've had. Yeah,
now, we have to explain. This is... We've actually shown a piece on my programme, but people don't watch it all the time, I'm sure. This is a white sausage, which you think...
Yeah.
I remember myself, the first time I ate it, I sort of had to grip myself, thinking, somebody's given me this and I've got to eat this, and it's delicious.
It is absolutely delicious. But I wasn't afraid of white sausage because my mum's Irish, and so you have black pudding and white pudding, and it's all delicious. But, it's an interesting...
and, of course, this is, as you say, breakfast.
Yeah.
A sausage, a pretzel and mustard. This isn't hot mustard, though.
No.
This is a sweet mustard.
It's a sweet mustard. It's absolutely delicious. But, in Ghana for breakfast, they have shito and waiche and, So.
Yeah. What don't you like about the German cuisine?
I think I'm not a massive fan of sauerkraut. Like pickled cabbage, which seems to be...
It's a famous thing, isn't it? Every sauerkraut, of course,
my particular palate is not inclined towards that. That's it. Okay. This was actually... You said this about the Bavarian breakfast in our questionnaire, and I want to ask you about things you answer, because you put... I thought this was an interesting answer from you as well. You put, for the coolest living German. Do you remember what you put? I think I put Angela Merkel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she'd be really flattered. A young person, young, cool person, thinking she's the coolest living German. Tell me why.
I think, I don't really know what Germans think of Angela Merkel, to be honest, but, she's been rocking it for Germany, hasn't she, for the past, 10 years? And she's a woman, she's a leader, a stateswoman, she's done wonderful things for the German economy. She seems to be pretty cool. And she attended was she at the World Cup final, I think she was, supporting her team.
Of course. Yeah, no, she wouldn't have missed that, I'm sure. Yeah, no, she was there, I remember. Yeah.
I have, whether or not she's the coolest living German, I don't know, but I've got a lot of respect for her.
Yeah. How do you think, actually, the Brits, I mean, I left Britain 25 years ago to live here, and I wondered what you think. 25 years ago, I'm thinking, football's reminded me of this, the attitude towards the Germans was pretty appalling, if I may say so, of my fellow countrymen. I think that's changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, it's interesting, you, for instance, I mean, you live here as well, but you know, you're saying how good Angela Merkel is. What do you think the general attitude towards Germans and the Germany is there from there?
Gosh, I don't know. I think that Britain on the whole has become less xenophobic than probably those times you're talking about, and kind of adopted being European as a reality and a welcome reality rather than... There's more pro-Europeans than there are negatives, I think. And I think there's still some stereotypes probably about beach towels and things like that. But I don't know.
This is putting the beach towels on, out. I think everybody in the world, I don't have to explain that one.
But, yeah, generally, I mean, you know, lots of people I know love Berlin, for example, and lots of people come here all the time. You
also put down as ingenious German invention ABS and auto screen... The ABS, which is the anti-locking braking system. Yeah. So you're a bit of a fan of German cars and driving on the Autobahn, or what's that?
Well, it's more the... what I like about those kind of inventions, and I think this is a particularly German thing, actually, is that it's creative design, like, to the nth degree. It's like really thinking about a solution to, like, a problem that most people would never have imagined was an issue, do you know what I mean? It's like before the ABS, it was like, well, you know...
So what?
So what? And then it's invented and it's like,
And we can't do without it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know the windows.
Yeah, so I did want to say, I have an admiration for for every place I've ever stayed in Berlin has these double open windows, so you can open them two ways.
You can open them that way, sort of that way, and then you change the thing and you open it.
Yeah. And I think it's really clever, but I don't know if it's a German invention, that's the only thing.
I think it must be. A lot of people have talked about this, and foreigners are always terribly impressed by this.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, why not? It's so simple. Why not? Yeah.
Do you remember what you put down for your favourite German word? I want you to say it, you see. Come on. It's a nice long word.
Schleich.
It's matchbox in Germany.
In German.
In German.
It's,
and it's not...
Schleichen?
No.
Schleichen?
No. OK, I'll say it. Streichholzschachtel.
That's the one.
Yeah.
There's so many CHs in that.
Yeah, and you put it about the worst thing about living in Germany, so many tricky words to get your tongue around, so we'll forgive you about that one. The wisest German you put down as Einstein. You put a quote here that I'll quote to you. Einstein said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction."
Which was prophetic, wasn't it?
It was very prophetic, but without social media, your existence wouldn't exist, would it? I mean, you...
Oh, that's not... Well, possibly.
Well, possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, there's a bit of a conflict. But, you know, I didn't have social media when I started, and people used the old-fashioned word of mouth, telling people...
OK, no, fair enough. Finally, in the questionnaire, I want to mention you put down as memorable German music, Krautrock.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because you couldn't have been around when Krautrock was around. Tell us about Krautrock. Why?
Well, so I was turned on to Krautrock by a friend of mine, Laura, who was... she's been a researcher for BBC programming and worked on lots of documentaries, and there was an excellent documentary about Krautrock, so I watched it, and I didn't realise actually how much music I was familiar with that was part of that scene, like it was a defined kind of movement. But you know, I think Krautrock kind of defines what's good about German music, don't you think? Like,
Well, let's find out. Let's find out a bit more. Krautrock was a style typified by long instrumental solos and the tendency to take experimental risks, but Krautrock was also very much a way of life. So that's Krautrock for you. Mm. Do you have albums now of Krautrock? Are you
digitally?
Digitally, OK.
Yeah.
Gosh, I shouldn't be asking. What's an album? Of course. I beg your pardon.
I used to actually have a fairly decent record collection, but yeah.
I should mention my guest is Zoe Adjonyoh, who likes Krautrock, but runs pop-up restaurants, lives between Berlin and London, and writing. What's next writing? I mean, you've got to finish this book. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I think, as I said, I'm going to change focus a little bit next year, and I'm hoping to set up a restaurant in London. So most of the first part of next year will be focused on getting that nailed down, I hope. And then...
So no more pop-ups?
Oh, no. I mean, I'll always do the supper clubs and tour them. I mean, I'm talking to people in Paris and New York about taking them there as well. I mean, it's really fun. It's like, I love doing the pop-ups, you know, and they will always exist, but like having a fixed place is like a little chop bar. It's a kind of a natural progression.
How do you work that out? I mean, you're talking to people in Paris and New York, you say, I mean, if you're going to go to New York and just do a couple of nights, or no, surely not.
Well,
is that sort of financially viable?
Well, it doesn't matter in a way for that kind of thing.
I mean, you've got to exist, though. I mean, you've got to earn a living, haven't you? I mean, I'm not imagining you're greedy and stuff like that.
No, but I mean, when I first came to Berlin, it wasn't a profitable exercise either, but the profile it gave me has led on to other things that make it, you know, makes it work. So I kind of would just love to do something in New York, to get some profile in New York and just to have a trip to New York, to be honest. So it'd be fun and hopefully make a little bit of money, but probably not enough to cover the flights. But sometimes you just do stuff because you want to, don't you?
Yeah, sure. And what about cuisine? Obviously you are known for Ghanaian cuisine. You spend a lot of time cooking, I imagine, reading, inventing, you know, tasting. Are you going to spread your wings culinary? What's the word?
Culinary wings?
In a culinary way at all? Away from Ghanaian at all?
No, I mean, you know, I'm not a trained chef. I'm like a home cook who's happened to do quite well at cooking food that I love and I've grown up with. I've got no ambitions to be like some kind of master chef. You know, I cook Ghanaian food well and I love cooking it. I cook other food obviously at home, but I don't want to I'm not vying for a place in any other...
No, I didn't mean that, though. I mean, I just thought you might be intrigued to sort of try other stuff. And are you forever reinventing Ghanaian food as well and taking it further, perhaps?
I mean, there's always... room for... I mean, I love food, you know, and I love trying new food from different places. And yeah, sometimes it's good when you cook to be informed by different flavours and different styles of food. Definitely, that helps. And some of what I do is reinventing Ghanaian ingredients. You know, reinventing the dishes using solid ingredients, rather. So yeah, and every time you try new food, you can't help but be influenced somehow.
OK, well, you know, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Do look out for Zoe's Ghana Kitchen. It seems to be going New York, Paris, could be Australia, wherever. I mean, is the world your oyster, as they say now?
Well, the world is everybody's oyster.
Yeah, OK, all right. And don't desert Berlin, though, I'm telling you. And if you want to enter our competition for this fabulous T-shirt, there's two, actually, and some hot sauce and some recipes, don't forget to write to insight@DWD. I think this is rather fetching on me, actually, don't you? Yeah, that's it. Goodbye. See you next time. Bye-bye.